Hey folks, welcome to another Triple T Thursday. For those just joining us, that's Tools, Tips, and Talk, where I talk about info for the knife maker. In today's episode, we're going to talk about handle shaping. And that's getting that nice contour on a handle that really makes it fit perfectly in the hand. Some people refer to Coke bottle handles. So we're going to look at that and how to produce that easily so you guys can do that, I won't say effortlessly, but it'll make it a lot easier. Another thing we're going to do in today's video is start introducing viewer knives. So for viewers have sent me pictures. If you haven't done that, go email me some pictures of your knives and maybe you'll see them on another Triple T. Lastly, you'll notice some new production. I just got a camera slide, so we'll be testing that out as well.
So I created this little fake knife out of a piece of wood with the blade because there's some aspects that I wanted to show you first. One of the first things you need to do, particularly for full tang knives, if you have pre-made scales where the scales are exactly the same thickness, then this isn't as important. But what you want to make sure you do is square up your handle. Because if one side of your handle is a little thicker than the other, this is going to throw you off. So you need to do this step first. So what you want to do is make sure that these are the same on both sides. So the easiest way to do that is take your blade, okay, put it on something that's flat. So I'm on a surface plate. And again, you don't probably need to be that accurate. You could probably do this just on a table, but I have a surface plate. I put a 1, 2, 3 block, which I know is perfectly level. And I'll set that on top. If you have a height gauge, then you can set this height gauge to just where, and usually the easiest thing to do is to measure both sides and then take the one that is the lowest, or the thinnest rather, and then do a line, okay? And then you can flip it over. Obviously I'm going to do this side now and do the same line. Whoops, no wonder that didn't work. And then do another line, and then you should get, exactly what you need to grind to get these parallel, okay, and the same thickness. If you don't have a height gauge, you can do this with calipers just by using this part of your calipers and setting it like this. It's a little more finicky, but it can be done here just by locking it and then scoring it across like that. It's just a little harder. It's a little easier with the height gauge. So now let's assume we have this all squared up. The next thing I like to do is guidelines. And that really is the key, especially if you're new at this. You need to put guidelines on your knife. That's how you're going to get the same roundness, so to speak, on both sides. I like to use these, this compass. This one has a little roller in the center. It's got a pencil on one side and a point on the other. You can just dial this into whatever you want. What should you start with? So if you were to do exactly half of your handle, it would be a perfect round circle. If it's a full tang knife, that's probably not what you want, because then you're actually grinding into the metal here. So you usually, what I recommend is do about 1/4 to 1/3 of the width of the knife. Usually easier to start with something a little thinner. So, and you can go and measure this and whatever, use calipers, but I'm just going to eyeball it right now. So I have this set now probably around 1/4. So what I will do is just do the same line on both sides. I'm also going to take that line and put it here and on this side. Okay, so now I've got lines. Let's put this a little here, right to the edge. There. I'll do that on the top because I usually want the top kind of rounded. On the bottom, I might do a slightly different contour. I might want to bring this up a little higher. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make it a little bit higher. And do that here. Well, I'm kind of doing this quickly, folks. I will usually leave the butt of the knife, the butt, I guess, a little flared here. So I'm not really going to take this down too much because I want that to be a little thicker in the end so it doesn't slide out of your hands. So now all I do is I will take this on the grinder and I will grind down to those lines. You can do a complete 45 and go line to line. So I'm going to put it at a 45-degree angle right up and take those down to those areas. These even might be a little wide. You might want to not go quite that aggressive. It's better to ease into it instead of going too far, but we'll do this just for the sake here. On these, I will use typically, because I have this finger groove, I will use the small wheel attachment and I'll just rotate it back and forth, but it's the same concept. Put some marking lines here so that you know how far. What you want is sameness on both sides. That's the key. Start slow if your first couple of knives and, like I said, ease into this. So let's go to the grinder. We'll start to put these in, and then you'll see what I mean. Because what you can do is put one, okay, grind to it, put another one, grind that, and basically you're putting facets on each of those bevels. And then eventually it'll be round enough where we're going to put it in the knife maker's vise and just shoe shine it with a piece of sandpaper, and that will completely round it out. Okay, so let's go do that. Okay, here I am at the grinder. I'm going to turn my dust collection on just so that it doesn't get crazy dusty in here, so it'll be a bit loud. So I'm not really going to talk through it, but you'll see what I'm going to do. So there we go. I've done the first cut at this. I did it pretty quickly. I normally would spend a little more time on that, but you can see it's pretty simple. I could have got a little closer to that line, but now once you get more comfortable with it, what you're going to do is just start to roll your blade, the spine of your blade, back and forth over, especially the top part, which is usually easier when there's an outward arc like this. And just go back and forth. And that will give you that nice contoured top. Okay, if you have to, score more lines like this. I'll make this quite a bit tighter. And if you think you need more lines, then just put more lines. You can, okay, put another line here. And then grind to those lines and take another and put another facet into it. Usually when I get to this point, I don't bother just because it's, I find it, well, maybe I just had more practice, just to kind of play with it on the grinder. Okay, let's talk about this area. When I do this area, if I want, I'm going to go back to the table here because I want to show you something. So for a Coke bottle handle, a lot of times what I want to do is I want to put a nice big swooping curve in the blade like this. Okay. It's really hard to do on a small wheel to get it close, and then you've got to kind of get an angle here. What I will typically do when I do that is, you know, draw a line, get the contour that I want, and then I will take this to a 4-inch wheel. And I will actually hold this on an angle against the 4-inch wheel so that my wheel is actually giving me that angle. So I'll show you how I do that. You know, not everyone has a 4-inch wheel. You can do it with a smaller wheel and just be careful. It's just, you need steady hands. But if that's the effect you're looking for, it's a lot easier with a 4-inch wheel. So let's go do that. So my 4-inch wheel is attached to my surface grinder, so bear with me here. But what I will typically do is just take this, I'll tilt the knife. So you'll see I'm tilting the knife like this, and this radius matches my 4-inch wheel quite a bit. So then again, I'll use my lines and just get it so that I have the right angle between, I didn't put a line here, but we'll just use that line and this line. And I'll go down like that, and then I'm going to go and do the other side. When I'm doing this, I'm looking down the top of the blade here so I can see exactly where I'm at. Okay, so it's starting to shape up here, and I'm starting to get the contour that I want. Okay, I would have done the full top of this before I moved to this one, just so I don't have to switch belts all the time. But now what I'm going to start to do is just kind of roll this back and forth and kind of smooth out these lines. Okay, and if you're nervous about the grinder, because the grinders will go fast, then one of the key things is it's great to have a variable speed drive on your grinder, because if this thing is going full blast, 3,500 RPMs, it's really hard to do handles. Don't be afraid to get it close and move to files. Okay, if I do this all the time. If I think, oh, I might screw it up with the grinder, or the grinder's going too fast, or, you know, I like to do things by hand sometimes with files and do final shaping. So don't be afraid to do that. You don't need to do everything with power tools. Okay, but I'm going to just take out some of the sharp lines here on this one, and then I'm going to move back to the platen and take these off. And then we'll go shoe shine it, and I'll show you what it's going to come out to. Okay. we put the finger well in there. We did the contour. Now, what we haven't done is actually take this and taper it. So I usually like to have a bit of a taper from here to here. So I'm just going to press the top, against this just to put a bit of an angle from here to here, and that's going to bring this down a bit. One thing that I also didn't mention before, wrap your blade. Not just one piece of tape. I suggest you wrap your blade in paper towel and then actual tape around that. So if you touch it, you've got that paper towel underneath. It's going to absorb some of the blow. The first time you touch your blade against the grinder and you put a big nick into it and ruin it, you'll thank me, or you'll remember this and go back and do that from now on. So I always tape my blades when I'm doing this, especially this part when this blade is so close. Okay, let's just do that final aspect and then we should be done. Okay, here we are, folks. It's not quite as tapered as I normally do it, but you get the idea. I've reduced this a bit. I've got it pretty close to what I want. You can actually see right here the difference here. So apologize, guys. I was doing it quickly, but you'd want to eyeball this so these are the same and it's nice and even. Or put marking lines on the front here is another way to do it. So now, you can see I've got this locked in my knife maker's vise. I've done a video on that. I'll put it up in the corner so that I can spin this thing around and sand it, file it, do whatever I need to. So I normally would start at the top and take a piece of 220 sandpaper and just start to like this. And that will round this out really, really nicely. If you start down here, you'll get it really, really nice and round. Okay, and as you do it like this, you'll start to take the top. So you'll get a feel for that. And then keep doing the same thing on the bottom. I will very commonly take a file and just make sure that these bevels are the same. You can see I've got a bit of a facet right there. I would just take that out with a file, a half round file, and just start to take those out before I start to sand. Okay, and if I wanted this to meet at a kind of a point or whatever, I'm a lot of times will do these bevels just with a file. Well, folks, that's how I do handles. I like them nice and contoured. I like the finger hole here. I think it, a lot of my knives have that. I like the grip. It's got a nice flare at the end. I can feel the fact that this is wider and it feels really nice in the hand.
So I hope this video on shaping handles helped you guys to get kind of a handle like this. Obviously this one's pretty rough and I haven't finished it, but you get the idea on how to approach handle shaping. So now in this section, I want to talk about viewer knives. And I had a viewer, Robert Duguay, sent me a picture of a knife he did, and I'll put it up here. So this is Robert's, I think he said 20th knife. His daughter challenged him to, with this dagger to say, "Hey Dad, I want this dagger, can you please make it for me?" He was thrown back a little bit, but he managed to pull it out and I think it looks beautiful. Robert's only been at it a couple years, 63 years old, and I can really relate to that because I'm 50 and I just picked up this hobby a couple of years ago. So we're both in the same boat. I think it's a beautiful knife. Thanks, Robert, for sending that in. So folks, if you have viewer knives, knives that you've done and you want them on viewer knives as part of Triple T, please email me. My email is the channel name, at Gmail, so please send them in. So guys, this ends this Triple T. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.